Yeah, man, I've seen a lot of your videos lately too. Yeah, man, it's super cool what you're doing.
Yeah, it actually started off as I had this idea for a podcast a while back, and then
Yeah.
I was just testing it on TikTok. I was like, I saw the algorithm on TikTok, and I'm like, man, it's so I threw some test clips up, and then just started doing it that way. Then they just went off.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usually how people go viral. That's pretty cool. But
Yeah, I remember the first one.
yeah, no, it's been cool, man. I've seen you. I saw your videos pop up like over the last couple of months, but like, there's a couple that came up over the last couple of weeks. There was one that you had that was talking about being a placeholder in people's lives. And it was weird because I was going through this thing where I get into a certain point in my life where I feel like I'm losing my friends out there. Everyone's moving on, doing their own thing. This video has popped up, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, this is fucked up. Like, why now?
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
That
But
was a weird one. That was a weird one because it was a conversation I was having with my therapist about that, and I was like, I'm just gonna make this video, and I did it, and it blew up. And the crazy thing about that was, it's cool and it's not cool. Like the video does well, it's cool, but it's so sad because 90% of the comments, 95% of the comments are just like people relating to it,
yeah,
and then it shows you like how sad everybody is. And no, I felt that way most of my life. Just I guess a lot of people do. Just there were a couple. I have an issue. I can take the good comments, but then there's the one person that kind of says a bad comment, and I'm just like,
yeah,
hold on, because now they're not only insulting me, you're insulting the rest of everybody here, saying they feel the same way.
yeah,
And that's my biggest thing with the whole mental health thing is the reason bad comments like that make me mad, because most of them was like man up, stuff like that, and whole terminology of manning up to me, I feel like guys like that act like it's all like bravo to act like that. They're just trying to silence people that are going through stuff. And so I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm trying, hey, I'll talk about it if you guys want to talk about it. And vulnerability just creates vulnerability. And, and I get hundreds of messages a day. And I try to talk to the people. I'm not a mental health expert, so I don't really try to diverge in all their stuff and fix them and stuff. But I'll listen to people just because that's mostly what everybody needs is just someone to listen to.
yeah. That's something I found too. Is since I started doing this podcast a year ago, I just get people in my because I'm a lot bigger on Instagram, and I got a lot of people in my DMs being like, "Hey, I've had a shitty day. I've listened to your podcast. Can you just give me some advice?" And I'm nowhere near a therapist. I'm old enough. I've been through some shit. I can give some general advice as a human or as a man, but yeah, it's that feel good moment when people can actually reach out to you and be like, "I need your help. Help me."
It's the weirdest thing. I did probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I did because I'm a filmmaker at heart. That's what I try to do.
Yeah.
But I did this video. It was kind of like a poetry video, and it was about mental health. And a lot of people reached out to me at that, and it was a lot of it was about alcoholism and stuff. And then I try not to. I'm very specific on how I word things because some videos I'm making for other people. It's not like me personally going through it, and so I try to. I'll make a video. So for example, I made a video a while back about just being like tired, like soul tired.
Yeah.
And I didn't, when I made the video, it was more of I felt that way at a time. I didn't feel that way at the time I made the video. It was more poetic. I was just making it for other people. Hey, I felt this way in the past, and I'm going to make this video because I think it could help some people if they relate to it. And then you get on, then it does well, and I think that had 1.4 million views. And now I'm like, okay, 1.4 million people think I'm a bitch and blah blah blah, and that's how my mind thinks about it for a second. But then, part of me wants to private the video, and then you're going through the comments and just seeing how much it helps people. I'm like, I'll keep it up. But so I struggle with. I want to be vulnerable, but at the same time, it is hard to be vulnerable because there are people out there that look at that as weakness.
It is hard being vulnerable on such a really big stage too. You've got like a really big following, so like bearing your soul to that many people, like it's not just being vulnerable with your friends and your family. Hey, I'm struggling with depression and I'm going through some shit. It's like you're telling thousands of people.
Yeah, yeah, and it's hard to like. I don't know. It's therapeutic. It's therapeutic in a way for me too to get on and just. Sometimes I'll get on just because I have a thought and I'm like, oh, let's talk about this, and I'll do that. But sometimes, like the video with feeling like a placeholder, that was very therapeutic for me to get that out there. And it's weird because when the TikTok thing blew up, I remember I was telling my therapist because I've been doing stuff for years. I've been on YouTube for 10 years. I've been doing stuff for a long time. And so and I've got some views before on that, but my first TikTok video blew up. When I say blew up, it did 75,000. But I remember telling my therapist, I was like, I thought I would feel good about this. I don't, I thought I'd be happy about it. I don't feel any different. And she said, maybe it's because the video was just a video. It didn't mean anything. So that's where the placeholder video came in. I said, okay, let's make a meaningful video. And then the placeholder thing came in and blew up. And then internally that kind of felt better for me, and then I just started going from there. But it's crazy how many people I relate to, because like I'll have people like, yeah, I saw you on my For You page, and then I'll be like, you doing okay? Because my content's pretty sad in nature.
Yeah, like you're talking about your therapist, which kind of leads to my next question. Is like, how long have you been working with a therapist for? Is it?
I've been working with therapists for about 2 years, going on 2 years now. I never got a therapist. I always, in my mind, I thought I was like, they're not going to tell me anything I don't already know. So I'm just too smart for a therapist. I don't think it would help me. And then I was at a very low point in my life, and I was like, okay, I need some help with this. So I got a therapist, and it was the complete opposite. Because therapists, they don't really sit there and try to solve your issues. It's just the concept of speaking your issues to a stranger that's actually listening. That was a big thing. So I remember the first couple of therapy sessions, we did FaceTime. And I went to my friends. I was like, dude, you guys got to try this. It's addicting. Like, it's nice because when you're talking with your friends about your issues, they always try to relate it to them. Man, I'm like, man, what's her name broke up with me. I'm so sad about it. And most of the time your friends go, yeah, like this one time, and they try to relate to it, and it takes away from you being able to do that. And the therapy is the complete opposite.
So how long have you been struggling with depression prior to that? Something that you experienced during childhood, through teenage years?
Depression's a little newer for me. Something that I've always struggled with, and I've never, my friends know about this, but I've never publicly spoke about this. So I've been OCD for going on 20 years now. Like severe, it's better now, but like severe OCD. That's where a lot of my anxiety and stuff came up from. And that's one of the main reasons why I got a therapist, because that was coming up really bad again. But I'd say I struggle with OCD more than depression. Depression was recent for me. OCD is a weird mental health issue because when a lot of people say OCD, people think cleanliness and all this stuff. And really, the OCD kind of, you don't feel the depression, you don't feel the anxiety, because the concept of OCD is you're doing these compulsions and then your mind's relieved from all that. But yeah, I feel like OCD is very misunderstood, but that's the original reason why I got into therapy, and that's mainly what I've struggled with.
What were your sort of coping mechanisms during this, especially early on with the OCD?
So it originated as a response to dating this girl in high school, and she cheated on me a lot. And that's my earliest memory of OCD. So I think it originated from that. I started to do these compulsions. So the obsessive thought was, oh, she's going to cheat on me again. And so I started doing these compulsions. And they started out in school. I would have to sit up and down out of the desk a few times. And I would mask it like I'm fixing my pants or pulling up my pants or something. So the people around me, it doesn't look like I'm doing that. But yeah, so I would have that intrusive thought of, oh, she's going to cheat on me while I'm sitting down, and now I have to repeat that until I have a good thought. And then that kind of, it went haywire from there. So years later, me and the girl didn't work out, and then the intrusive thoughts just became something else, my health or my father's health. And the compulsions turned into really any action especially an action that you don't see. So if I was walking and I accidentally run into the door, that would now become a obstacle. So now I would have to touch the door a few times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not really much OCD anymore. I've got it pretty handled now. But yeah, but most of my teenage years and early adulthood, it was pretty rough.
So during these early years where you're experiencing this, obviously you had this one thought process: if you don't do this, then this will happen. But did you ever pull yourself aside at some point and catch yourself be like, hey, like, I need to break this cycle? What am I doing?
Yeah, I tried to, because I started to do some research on how to fix it. And obviously, there's always medicine and stuff, and I got an opinion about that. So I was like, I want to do things naturally.
Yeah.
And then I try to tell myself, like, it is a chemical imbalance. It's like, it's not going to happen. But I never really sure. I remember the worst time ever was I remember it was probably like 17 or 18. It was like the peak of my OCD. I remember getting out of the shower and a piece of water dripped from my nose and hit my big toe. And I was like, how the fuck do you do that? And I was in there for so long. Eventually, the water dried up, and it was sweat coming off my nose. And I was trying to hit my big toe. And after that, I was like, okay, we need to do something about
We need to
this.
have a talk.
Yeah. But no, the main thing for OCD stuff is exposure therapy, which it was hard for me because my obsessions my obsessive thoughts were different. Like my fears would change. So exposure therapy didn't. Or from my belief, I was like, if I get rid of this fear, then another one's just going to pop up. If it's not my health, it's going to be my daughter's. Or then my therapist explained, she's that's not what we're trying to do. The concept of OCD is your mind is having it's good, and then it has that thought, and your anxiety goes here, and then you do the compulsion, it goes down, and you have these high up and lows. And she said the concept of exposure therapy is not to get rid of the fear, it's to minimize those spikes. Yeah, that's we tried it, but I've been good lately. I haven't really, I don't want to say it's cured, but I haven't been OCD in a while.
And then following all this, you decided to, how did you transition from this into turning it into content for mental health and awareness?
It all originated. So I went through a pretty bad breakup last August. So I was with this girl for a while last August. And this is where my depression came in. So I was dating this girl, and she was great. It was on paper, it just looked great. And I was dating this girl, and what had happened was I don't know, I thought I was busy. I got a new apartment, started to work this new job, I have a daughter. So I was like, man, I'm busy. So I would come home, I get off work at 8 o'clock. I would talk to my daughter for 30 minutes. I would talk to this girl for 30 minutes because she lived a little further away. And then I would spend the rest of the time to myself. And so the last couple months of the relationship, she was asking for more out of me. She's like, I need more time out of you. I can't give you more time because I'm taking time for myself. And
Yeah.
so I pushed her away. So I ended up breaking up with her in August of last year. And pushed her away, and after I pushed her away, I started. This was all subconsciously. I had the time. I just started to feel lonely, and I went to this. I work for Subaru. I went to this Subaru. This is I didn't break up with the girl yet. This is still August. I'm sorry. Um, they sent me to Boston for a training event, and it's supposed to be the salesman and their mechanic. And so I went to Boston, and my mechanic didn't go with me. So I'm in Boston by myself, and it was so weird. It was like one of the loneliest times I've ever had. And I'm sitting in my hotel room, and I just broke down. Not like crying, just like I'm like it, that. A lot of sadness, a lot of stuff was going on because I just felt so alone. And I was still with this girl. And so I got back from Boston, then left the girl, and throughout the next few months, I started to push people away. I didn't really talk to my dad as much. Didn't really visit people a lot. I came home after work just to myself. And around Thanksgiving last year, I remember I woke up alone and I went to Denny's. I was sitting at Denny's by myself, which was a weird concept on Thanksgiving morning. And I'm going through my phone. I'm like texting everybody. So for Thanksgiving, I like to text people and tell them why I'm thankful, like everybody I know. And then I'm like, nobody's texted me. I have to reach out again. I'm sitting in Denny's by my fucking self, like this. And a few days later, just out of the blue, I started to want to reach out to the girl again. And I was like, I think I made a mistake. And I reached out to her in December. And first day, she was about it. She was like, yeah. And I was like, I should have made you a priority. At the time, I was pushing everybody away. I don't know what's going on in my life, but at the very least, I want you. And first day, she was okay with it. Second day was a little iffy. And then once she knew I was prepared to be back, she switched it up. I don't know what I want. And I think what she was feeling was now she had the power to actually be mad at me and me be present for me leaving her. And because she said I had nightmares. That was the worst break. That was the worst break I've ever been through. That was worse than my divorce. Blah blah blah. And I was like, I get that. And the next 2 weeks, now I'm in panic mode because I was like, I thought I could have her back, and now I can't. So now I'm in panic mode, and she lived in Jersey, and it's about 6 hours from me. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, I need to have a conversation with her. So I texted her and I said, hey, and this is where a lot of the depression was kicking in. I said, hey, if we were close, would you see me and talk to me about this? She's like, yeah. I said, okay. And I said, here's what I'm going to do. Tomorrow at this time, I'm going to be at this restaurant. Show up, cool. Don't show up, cool. And I said, I don't want an answer. I'm going to be there regardless. And I called a few of my buddies. I'm like, hey, is this weird or does this sound romantic? And everyone's like, oh, it sounds like a good idea. And so next morning I wake up and I get the oil change in the car. I call this restaurant in Jersey. I'm like, hey, is this place romantic? They're like, yeah. I said, reservation for 2 at 7. And I start driving. I remember I didn't send her the address till halfway through my drive because I had the fear like she would text me and say I'm not coming. So halfway through the drive, sent her the address. No response is a good response. And I'm almost to Jersey. And she texts me and says, hey, can you change the reservation to 6? I can't stay long. And that did two things for me. One, I was like, okay, now I know she's coming, but now it feels like a pity thing. And so instantly, I'm like, I should just turn around now. This isn't going to go how I think it's going to go. And my brother-in-law calls me. He's like, just have a good time. Just, you never know. So I get there. I got a hotel right beside the restaurant. And it was 5:30 when I walked in the restaurant. She's going to be there at 6. And I walked over to, there was a bar area and then the dining area. I walk over to the bar and I get a beer, chug the beer, and I walk over to the hostess, says, hey, I have a reservation for 6. Can I sit down? She said, yeah. Do you want a drink? I said, yeah, give me a big glass of wine. Chug that. Second glass of wine. And I'm almost finished with the second glass of wine. And we're sitting at this table, I'm sitting at this table, and I'm not trying to look towards the entrance, but out of my peripheral, I'm like, okay, I want to know when she's coming because I want to get up and pull the chair out. And so she comes down, pull the chair out, she sits down, and about 30 seconds goes by, and she says, are you drunk? And I giggled. I said, yeah. From there on out, just ruined the whole night. It wasn't a bad night, but she couldn't convey how this meant so much to me and I got drunk. And I was like, no, it meant so much to me. That's why I got drunk. So I go back to the hotel, and it wasn't just the girl. It was the girl and everything else that I didn't know what was going on in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm in this hotel, and the next morning I wake up, and it was right around when Ellen DeGeneres, producer, committed suicide.
Yeah.
It was like same day. And I remember waking up the next morning and I was just done. I don't know, it was the weirdest feeling I've had in my life because it wasn't really about the girl. And everybody's thought about suicide. I would never, because I got a daughter and family, and I would never do that. But the thought was there that morning. And I was just like, man, I'm just empty inside. And I remember getting my phone out. I swear, if I was going to do it, how would I do it? I'd probably take some pills. What kind of pills do you take? And I pick up my phone and I Google it, and you can't do that. As soon as you type that shit in, like Google pops up like suicide awareness stuff. Like, I was like, fuck, even if I wanted to kill myself, I couldn't, because I don't know what to take. And that lasted for about an hour. Just that sadness, just that thought. Like, I don't even know if I'd call it sadness. It was more of an absence of feeling, actually.
It's like a numbness.
Yeah, it was like I
Yeah.
didn't really feel anything. And so I go to CVS to get some Benadryl because I was like, I'm just going to sleep the rest of the day. And while I'm at CVS, the girl texts me, hey, I had a good time last night, but I just didn't feel the shit anymore, blah, blah, blah. And I was relieved. I was like, okay, I got my answer, blah, blah, blah. And I come back to drive all the way back to West Virginia. And now I got nothing. I was like, fuck, I don't got the girl. I don't got nothing. And a little months went by again. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. And I was selling a car to this old guy. And I'm a very talkative person. And so I'm talking about my life and the girl. And he starts asking me these questions about like my mother and all kinds of stuff. Find out he was a psychologist. So I had this 4 hour conversation with this dude selling him a car. And at the end, he's just, I think the thing with the girl and all this stuff, I think it all dwells down to your mother leaving you at 12 years old and all this stuff. And the stuff he was telling me was just like, I said, maybe you're right. And it was all that stuff. And so we came to the conclusion, I've never gone through anything in my life. So every time something happens, I brush it off. Like I don't care. My mom was a heavy alcoholic, and I moved out of her house when I was like 10 or 12. And my dad got me, but throughout my childhood, I always joked about it. Hey, my mom sucks. Blah blah blah. I tried to make it funny and brushed it off like it didn't bother me. And throughout my life, I did that. My best friend of 20 years did something to me, and I brushed that off. And a lot of these major events, I just brushed off. And to me, I didn't think I had issues with it. But after I was talking with this psychologist, I was like, maybe I do have an issue with that. Each of these major events in my life, I really try to sit down and dwell on it, live it again. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, let's see, is there mom issues here? Let's handle this. Not like fixing the relationship with my mother, but let's see what's there. And there was this concept of writing it down, like writing a letter to my mother, not sending it to my mother, but writing a letter to her. And then after you're done writing the letter, you burn the letter. It's like a let go thing. So I did that with a couple of things, and yeah, and then I was at the rock bottom. And so this is going into the TikTok thing. Sorry.
No, I
Uh,
get it.
so the TikTok came from, I made the first TikTok because that time period where I was trying to get back with that girl, I guess you can call it it was a little bit of therapeutic for me, but it was a little manipulative. I'm like, okay, I'm going to post this in hopes that she sees it. So they started off that way. And then obviously they were sad in nature because I was referring to stuff in the relationship. And then I just saw people relating to it and it was starting to kick off. So it transformed from, I'm just going to jump on here and talk about sad shit about my ex to, okay, let's actually talk about life and all that jazz. And, yeah.
So going back, you mentioned that you just brushed off a lot of these things that happened to you in your life. Do you think that's, especially with men's mental health these days, the fact that we have higher suicide rates, do you think that could just be something that we've accepted as a society, that men are expected to brush stuff off rather than actually dealing with it or processing it?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because there was these dudes I went to school with, like tough fucking dudes, football player, tough dudes.
Yeah.
And they've messaged me and was like, hey, and said that. They're like, hey, I appreciate you saying what you're saying because I can't say it. And then my response is like, why the fuck not? Yeah, I feel like men especially are very silenced in it because it comes from this whole fucking theory that men can't feel, men can't be sad, and just man up and hold all that stuff in, don't process it, and then people kill themselves. And that's why I get in arguments with people that say man up, and I'm like, hey, you're trying to silence some people that need to talk. Like, the true definition of a man, in my opinion, is someone that can acknowledge that they got issues. Hey, I got a daughter, I got this, I got all these people relying on me. I got some issues I need to let out, and I need to get myself fixed so then I can be a man for my family and stuff. Not the guy that's keeping bottled up inside and calling everybody a bitch.
No, I 100% agree. Yeah, when I started doing this podcast a year ago, a close friend of mine, well, I thought he was a close friend, he would say things like, you did it a man up, depression isn't real, and things like that. But knowing him and knowing him for a number of years, you could see the guy was miserable. He was depressed. He was going through some shit, but he would just never talk about it. You know,
Yeah,
and
and
it's
there was this dude that committed suicide a couple years ago. I went to high school with him. Never would have said. He's not the type of dude that usually talks about stuff, but most of the people I see commit suicide or something of that nature, it's you would never. You're like, man, I didn't know he was sad. Like, sad. The people that sad are usually good because they're the ones letting people know when they're sad. It's the ones that are like, man, fucking Jerry, dude. Jerry never said. Jerry was the happiest dude I knew. It's
yeah.
those people you got to watch out for because they're bottling shit up inside.
Yeah, you look at the history of celebrities. You look at Robin Williams, Chester Bennington, like guys that made millions of people happy, made their lives better, but like they succumbed to the demons that were going through their heads every single day.
Yeah, Robin Williams was a tough one, tough one, and yeah, it's just you never know, and that's why you got to treat the situation. You got to treat suicide very of the highest importance because you have some people that bullshit. I've had friends like, oh, fucking Jenny dumped me, I'm gonna kill myself, and blah blah blah. And you want to say, no, you're not, but you have to treat it because you never know. You have to treat every situation like they're being serious. There are a lot of people that use the suicide thing as a attention grabber, but you can't say that because you just never know.
Yeah. Funny you should mention that. One of the issues I was actually working through recently with my therapist, I dated this girl for a while. She was manic depressive, bipolar, was on lithium. Like she had been through some shit in her life. Like she was struggling with a lot of issues. And there was a period towards the end of our relationship where I was carrying her burdens for her. Anytime something went wrong, or if I had, say, it was on a business trip, like her first instinct was, "You're leaving me. I'm going to kill myself." And you would have to take it seriously because she had attempted to do it in the past. Like even prior to me, she had a history of doing these things, which I found out 2.5 years into our relationship, which was great. It's You do have to take these when they're going through these episodes, when they say these things, like you can't be like, oh, they're just playing, they're just using it as a attention, because the one time that
Yeah,
it could be bad and it could be worst case scenario.
yeah. That's what. Cause I've had friends do that, and in my experience, most of the times it's the same concept as if somebody says they're gonna punch you in the face. Like most people that say it ain't gonna do it. It's the people that don't say it you gotta watch out for.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just never know. So it's I want to call people out sometimes, but then at the same time, I don't want to be wrong.
Yeah. Do you feel like, so you get a lot of messages, you get a lot of DMs, people like telling you things they're going through. Do you feel that, do you take on those burdens? Does that impact your mental health?
Sometimes, sometimes the more vulnerable videos where I'll get the message like, "Oh, you just put into words how my brother felt before he killed himself and stuff." And I'm like, "Fuck,
Yeah,
I don't like that."
that's
Those
rough.
ones, yeah, those ones are like. Then I'm thinking to myself, like, "Am I doing okay?" I had this one girl. She messaged me a few weeks ago, and this is the whole people thinking since I'm so open to talking about mental health, people thinking I'm like a guru about shit. She says, "Can you make a video about losing both your parents at 18 years old and to a car accident and then living life after that?" And I messaged her back and I said, "No, I can't. I have no idea what that's like."
Yeah.
I said, "I can't make up stuff." I said, "But I'm more than, if you need a platform to talk about it, I'm more than happy to give that to you. And maybe you'll find somebody else on the TikTok stratosphere that knows what that's, but I don't." I get a lot of that. People ask me to talk about stuff on alcoholism, and I'm like, I can't. I don't know.
Yeah, I can relate to that as well. You get some weird requests. Can you do a podcast episode on schizophrenia or things like that? And I'm like, I could interview somebody, but I can't speak about it because I've never gone through it.
Exactly, and that's where I'm starting, because my podcast hasn't technically started yet. These are all theoretically just been test clips. But yeah, that's the whole concept of my podcast. Is I'm bringing people on because I got to the point, especially with that last relationship. It was one of the, I would say I'm a know-it-all. I used to be, and I'm right a lot of the times. And that relationship was a big eye opener for me because I was like, fuck, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And now I'm in a position where I'm like, I kind of want to be done talking. I just want to learn. I just want to learn from other people. So I'm just bringing on people to learn from them. Like, how'd you get through this and stuff like that?
That's the thing, man. We need more people like you out there talking about this stuff, just normalizing it, not just for society as a whole, but especially in men's mental health. I think like we're finally going in the right direction, but we got a long ways to go.
Oh, for sure, for sure. But since I've gotten into therapy, eight. I've gotten 8 people into therapy since I've gotten into therapy. Men,
Wow.
just because they see how open I was talking about it, and then they pull me aside and they're like, "Hey, man, what's?" And I was like, "Here's the number. Here's the people." I say, "It's you can FaceTime them, blah blah blah." And yeah, they should give me a finder's fee at the therapist's office. But no, I think people that even happy dudes. I think everybody should try therapy at once because you just never know.
Let's talk about your therapy. Like, if you could just take all your experience with therapy, everything that you've spoken about with your therapist, like, what is the one valuable piece of advice you could offer people about therapy?
Probably be open to everything and know yourself because there's times where I'm about to have a session with my therapist and I'm like, my life's going good. I don't got shit to talk about. And then an hour and a half later, we just had one of the best sessions of my life. But the best thing my therapist has ever told me, and I tell her this day in and day out, is she said, take a minute, pause, and ask yourself, what do you need? What does Tyler need? What does Tyler need in this relationship? What does Tyler need in this friendship? What does Tyler need out of his job? You have to be selfish because there's a lot of people and they're just selfless people and they're trying to be people pleasers and this, and that's where a lot of depression and everything comes from because you're just exhausted from doing all this. What do I need from this other person? Because it's that self-care that nobody thinks about self-care because everybody thinks we live in a selfish world, and maybe materialistically we do, but emotionally we don't. Everybody's selfless. Everybody loves giving to other people, and I would say this because I don't know. I haven't met a selfish sad person. It's usually someone that's given too much. That'd be the one thing a therapist that really taught me the most, and she says it to me like every 2 weeks just to remind me.
So you've got a podcast coming out. You're doing some really cool stuff on TikTok. What's next for you, man? Where do you want to go from here?
The podcast stuff is just therapeutic. I'm into filmmaking. I'm writing a script right now. It's going to be my first festival run. We're going to go on a festival run next year. The subject is still very the same: mental health, anxiety. I just put it in story form. So yeah, I'm trying to bring some good people on that project. I got an actor friend in LA, and he's getting on. Trying to really bring some people on for that, and basically the same thing. Spread the message just through that. That's my passion. Just spread the message through my passion. The podcast is more of a therapeutic, creative venture.
It's funny you should mention that. When I first started the podcast, my wife, this is before I actually got into therapy, she was like, you will literally do anything else besides actually go to therapy and talk about your own problems. You'll start a podcast, you'll start a TV show, but why can't you just go speak to a therapist? And I'm just like, I don't know, man. This is how I'm built.
It's good. Next week. I got a spiritual healer coming on. She had like PTSD, but she does stuff like not the book way. She does stuff the different way and stuff. And I'm actually bringing on a lot of people that I think can help me. Like, it's low key. I'm trying to get some free help.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. I'm also bringing people on that I admire. I reached out to my favorite band. I don't know if you heard it. It's Vancouver Sleep Clinic.
Name rings a bell.
Yeah, they were in some movies. Like I listened to him in it was a Chris Evans movie on Netflix back in 2014. It's been one of my favorite bands ever since. But I reached out to him, and me and him are going to jump on and have a conversation. Just especially songwriters and stuff. Like there has to have been something in your life that happened to make you write this. But yeah, just trying to share the message because, like I said, vulnerability creates vulnerability.
Hey man, I think what you're doing is awesome, man. We definitely need more people like you out there, and yeah, man, hats off.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Cool, Tyler, man. I think what you're doing is awesome. Really appreciate you coming on the show today. Yeah, shit, I forgot what I was gonna fucking say. It's been one of those weekends. My wife's newly pregnant, so it's
right.
So it's just like baby brain at the moment.
Nice.
But yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. Like, it was super cool. I watch your videos all the time now. Even when I'm good mood, bad mood, feeling down, your shit always pops up on my timeline.
Appreciate it. It's good to hear. It's good to hear.